Have you ever heard of a place so eerie that even the bravest souls fear to tread? Imagine a bridge, lost in the fog, where something unnatural waits in the mist. Tonight, let me share a horrifying true story that a Japanese friend of mine swore was absolutely real. He was haunted by it for years, and I think you'll understand why after hearing what happened. But before we dive in, think about this. What would you do if you found yourself trapped between life and death on a cursed bridge? This all began when my friend was just 17 years old, working a summer job in a small electronics store. One day, his manager decided to treat the employees to dinner. They were headed to a restaurant high in the mountains, and to get there, they had to cross an old suspension bridge that hung over a deep, dark valley. The group of 5 people split into 2 cars, with the manager driving one, and my friend driving the other with his colleague beside him. As they drove through the misty, twilight-covered mountains, the manager took a wrong turn, and by the time they reached the bridge, night had already fallen. The rain was light, but the fog was thick, and it seemed to seep from the very ground, wrapping around them like a ghostly hand. The manager crossed first, his car slowly moving over the old bridge. My friend followed closely behind, but when they reached the center, something strange happened. The manager's car came to an abrupt stop. Confused, my friend waited, thinking it was just a mechanical issue. But then, out of nowhere, the rear door of the manager's car opened. 2 boys got out and, without warning, they started running, fast, almost as if they were being chased. And then the unimaginable happened. The 2 boys joined hands and, without a second thought, hurled themselves over the bridge's guardrail, disappearing into the thick, misty void below. My friend was frozen in shock. He rushed to the edge, peering down into the foggy abyss, but saw nothing, not a trace of the boys who had just jumped. The drop was over 100 feet. No one could survive that. Panic set in. He turned to check on the manager, who was still sitting in his car. But the scene was even worse than he could have imagined. The manager was gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles were white. Tears streamed down his face, and he kept muttering the same words over and over, as if in a trance. I want to do it, but I can't do it. I want to do it, but I can't do it. When the police arrived, they had to physically pry his hands off the wheel. He was taken to an ambulance, still muttering, his sanity shattered. Later that night, the bodies of the 2 boys were found, their lives tragically ended in the river below. But what really happened on that bridge? My friend was interrogated by the police, but he could never explain what happened. They speculated it was some kind of suicide pact. But my friend always knew there was something far more sinister at play. Months later, he visited the store manager, who was recovering in a mental hospital. After some casual conversation, the manager leaned in, his voice trembling, and shared the truth. It was the fog. It was the children, he whispered. He explained that as they crossed the bridge, a woman appeared out of the fog, her long black hair flowing, her white shroud glowing eerily. The manager slammed on the brakes to avoid hitting her. But that's when the real horror began. The mist closed in, suffocating the car, and from the depths of the fog, a group of children appeared. Their faces were distorted, smeared with blood, and they were dressed in the same white shrouds. The children surrounded the car, banging on the windows, chanting in unison, "Join us, come with us, join us, come with us." The manager's mind was consumed by their eerie voices. He clung to the steering wheel, fighting the overwhelming urge to give in. He watched helplessly as the children dragged the 2 boys from the back seat into the fog, their screams echoing in the mist. The manager struggled, torn between wanting to join them and wanting to survive. But he couldn't. And when the children were gone, the manager was left alone with the suffocating silence. Before my friend left, the manager grabbed him by the arm, his grip tight and desperate. "I think that's what happened," he said. "But promise me you'll never go near that bridge. If you do, they'll come for you, and they'll drag you down too." This story has haunted my friend for years. He swore that he would never attempt to cross that bridge again. And after hearing it, I think I'd be too terrified to go anywhere near it as well. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think happened that night? Do you believe in the supernatural, or was it all just a tragic coincidence? And here's another question: would you dare cross that bridge, knowing what happened to those poor souls? Let me know in the comments below.